Hey guys, welcome back to the Hi Homes channel. Welcome back to our episode 2 of Costa Insights.
Where we drink coffee
and talk property. Let's go. My name is Kian and I'm the founder and sales manager at Hi Homes.
I'm Matt Campbell, Director of Operations and Marketing. One of the questions we get most frequently by our audience is what the key differences are between buying new construction and an existing home or resale property here on the Costa del Sol.
We call it resale versus off-plan, but in the international market they call it existing versus new build. I think that generally people when they start their property search, they don't really know the difference. I think that question comes sort of midway or when you start looking into the market. So people start by going, I want to buy a property in Spain for whatever reason. Yeah. Relocation, investment, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll start doing their research, Googling, coming across portals, either Lista, websites like ours, and then they'll go, oh, hey, it's actually a difference. Like this is this new construction, this looks like a render, it's a 3D, and then like this is something finished, the style's different.
Okay, let's start with existing properties, or as we call them, resales. Help our audience understand what they can expect when they're in the market for a resale property.
I think the key difference is, when you're buying a resale property, you're buying it from a private vendor, right? So it's a private vendor that's selling that property. And when you're buying from when you're buying a new build or off plan, whatever stage that is, you're buying from a developer. So you're buying from a business, right? Without going into too much depth in the differences, one's a very sort of straightforward, corporative or let's say business transaction, 1, 2, 3, you follow a process, where when you're buying from a private person, normally their home, they've lived there for 20 years or they've used it as a hold home for 10 years, so it's a bit more emotionally charged, I would say. Key differences. There's tax differences, which we'll talk about in a moment, but I would say that's the key difference for our audience to understand.
Are there any risks involved with buying from a private individual? How would our buyers protect themselves from buying from a private individual? Are there any, would you bring somebody along to help you inspect the home?
Let's say that with the resale property, what you see is what you get. You can go, touch, see, feel. With new builds, you don't have that. You're normally buying off plan if it's not finished, right? You're buying off a actual floor plan and renders, right? So what you need to look out for. First of all, you need to have the right guidance through the market. We sell predominantly new builds, but we also sell a lot of resale properties to our clients. And within Hi Homes, I'm an agent within my agency, so I'm still out and about and show a lot of property to our clients. So, you need to be, the question here or the key point is guidance, right? You're like, what do you need to look out for? Well, there's a million things you need to look out for, but the main things are obviously legally, which we'll take aside, making sure there's no debts or encumbrances in the property. I think you need to look at the physical appearance of the property. Make sure that infrastructure in terms of plumbing, electric works. These are things that you can always hire a surveyor to look into for you. And the simple things which you can look at without surveyors. Make sure the AC works, appliances, and so on. Right? So I would say you get very carried away on your first or second viewing of the property, just looking at the nice things. Take your time to look through the property in depth. When you spend a few hours in a property, you'll start seeing the things you haven't seen at the beginning.
On a resale property, how much more than the actual listed price should I expect to pay for the property here in Spain?
There is a big difference between taxes,
legalities, I mean, whatever.
Tax,
so I see the price. How much more do I need to budget for?
We'll talk about both cases here, and it's very, very straightforward. So purchase cost on resale properties is in total 9%, and that's broken down the following. You have 7% transfer tax. We're talking about Andalusia, okay? So other parts of Spain might be different, but in Andalusia, at least for both cases, resale properties, total 9%. 7% transfer tax, you pay no VAT on resale properties. 1% for your lawyer, so until they're 8%, and 1% various. On the other side, new construction, really simple. Transfer tax does not apply, you pay VAT instead, 10% VAT, 1% for your lawyers, 1.2% AGD, Actos Jurídicos Documentados, which is stamp duty, and then 1% various. So altogether, 13.2%.
And then last question on the resale front. From the moment I decide to buy a property and we agree on the price, how long before I actually get the keys and I get to move in?
That's another thing. So, generally, the normal process, if you ask any real estate agent in Malaga, you'll pay a reservation between 6,000 and 10,000 euros, generally speaking, and then you'll have 2 weeks to pay 10%. That's when you enter real contracts. It's for people to understand the reservation contract is a very simple contract, just outlines the property, the people involved, and it's a small token of, hey, I'm interested. Within 2 weeks, your lawyer will do due diligence, make sure that everything's okay, debt-free, encumbrance-free, XYZ. You pay 10% at private purchase contract. That's what we call it, PPC. Not to be confused with PBC, which is money laundering. PPC, you pay 10%, and then normally within 30-45 days more, 30 to 45 days later, you sign title deed, depending if you need a mortgage or not. So generally speaking, on average, 45 to 60 days is the normal for resale properties. That's normal. Sometimes if you need more time, that can be negotiated. On the other side, I'll answer that already, is, you know, when new construction, new build, it depends on the development. Is it ready? You can, the same thing, within 30-60 days you can move in. Is it not ready? As long as it takes to finish the development.
Another thing that we get a lot of questions about is what can they expect when they're buying off plan? Are they able to do customizations to the properties? What are the typical payment terms?
Let's stop right there. Personalizations. It depends on the developer. Some developers are super flexible. For example, you know, Marine Hills, we've sold quite a few there in the last few months. TM, plenty of flexibility. Like, you want something? Fine. This is our personalization department. We'll, you know, come forward and give you a proposal.
They have a department for it.
Yeah, you can personalize everything you want. Like, you want a wall down, they'll do it for you. Other developers, they are so rigid. Like, no, this is what you buy, and that's the end of the story. And they'll actually price things very expensively, so make sure that you don't do it. Because, you know, if you're handing over 140 apartments or 150 apartments and 150 clients want different things, it's a logistical nightmare. So that's why they're very rigid. However, you know, developers like TM, for example, there's a few others which, you know, they're the same. They offer these options, and you can personalize things. So it depends on the developer.
But you do often get like one or two or three, like the flooring, countertops.
Yeah.
That you kind of get. I'd say most developers offer that here on the coast.
That's the standard. So the standard is 3 colors of tiles that you can choose from.
Exactly.
3 tiles of kitchens.
Which you'll always see a display of them in the
exactly.
homes.
But I'm talking about real personalizations where you can go in and change the layout or change, install an outdoor barbecue, change the kitchen layout. That's not that common.
My last question, actually, I've just bought my unit off plan. When do I get the keys? When can I move in?
When the property is finished. The developer has, this is something very important actually. The developer has a handover date. So when you go into, your agent will show you around the market, and you'll see 6 different developments, and the developer will say, it's gonna be finished in Q4 2026. And then it's always the same thing. That's the deadline, but then in the contract, they always have a grace period. So it's normally 6 months more in case of any, force majeure or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So normally you can move in on completion. They will inform the town hall that they've completed the development, and then they either do a declaración de responsable, that's sort of a quick process, or they ask for the first occupation license. They have to get inspected, so that can take a few months. So from the development being finished until handover, once it's finished, 2 months later, people are normally signing deeds and getting a handover. And by the way, if you buy a new build, when you move in, you're moving into a very early stage development. So like, the trees are not mature, these are things which I see our clients.
That's a really good point,
Yeah, I see our clients like, this is like, it's still a bit more of a building site. Yeah, it takes time for it to mature up, Like the best age of a development is like 1 or 2 years in. This is the whole, journey of buying a new build.
I think that's the other thing, that the comment that we often get, or the discussions that I often hear our sales agents having with buyers, is related to when do they want to start using the property. Because ultimately, if you're ready to wait 3-4 years, we got a bunch of options for you. Yeah. But if you only want to wait 1, that's certainly going to limit your options. And I think that's a very important discussion to have early on together with the agent, because if you're really sort of dictated by that, then you can save yourself a lot of time looking at property on the coast.
Yeah, I mean, another thing some of our clients do with good compromises, people who want to relocate, move over, what they'll do is they'll buy something on the construction and they'll rent something until it's finished.
Yeah.
But a lot of our clients, I think it depends of your age, it depends of a million factors. If you're in early 30s, mid 40s, 50s, early 60s, you'll wait a few years. It's not a big deal. But if you're late 60s, beginning 70s, like, what are you gonna wait around for? Like, I've had it myself. Clients have gone like, they've seen the same property in the resale market, maybe for like 100K more, I don't know, and something in the new development market, and they go, hey, like, I'm gonna buy that property, and I go, well, that's 100K cheaper, and they go, yeah, but time, I haven't got all the time in the world. Like, I want to start enjoying it now. Very good valuable point. Resale is for people that want to start enjoying now, and there's great opportunities in it as well. Does not mean that new builds is the best, New builds is the best for a specific type of buyer, and resales is good for another kind of buyer.
You've answered a lot of the questions, I think, that we often get.
I think that's a nice wrap to our episode number 2, Costa Insights. There's going to be a lot more of this great content coming your way. If you want to stay posted with videos just like these, stay posted with Costa Insights, property tours, vlogs, everything to do with the Malaga real estate market. Click that button, bing, subscribe to our High Homes YouTube channel.
Any other topics that anybody wants to hear on this channel, write them in the comments. We'd love to address them.
Hasta luego.
Take care.